Hello again to all the listeners and welcome back to another brand new episode. This week, extended panelist Jimmy Maher and rugby fanatic Gary O'Hare caught up with perhaps Argentina's greatest ever rugby player, Filipe Contepomi. Filipe holds Argentina's all-time scoring record. He was an IRB Player of the Year finalist in 2007, and it's a huge honour for us to have him on the show. We'll be talking over all his career highlights and about his new role as a coach for Leinster. You're listening to the extended panel.
And a warm welcome to all viewers and listeners to another brand new episode of the Extended Panel Sports Show. Joining us on today's episode, we have Argentinian rugby legend Filipe Contepomi, who will be talking to us about his rugby career and his move into overseeing the development of the new generation of players at Leinster Rugby. Good morning, Filipe. It's great to have you on the show. Also joining me this morning, I have trusted friend and colleague of the Extended Panel, Gary O'Hare. Gary, I know, as a rugby player and a coach yourself, you're looking forward to this morning's show.
Yeah, cheers, Jimmy. Great to have Filipe on the show with us this morning. Definitely one of the most exciting out-halves I've watched growing up. Huge honour.
Absolutely. Filipe, strange times we find ourselves in over the last couple of weeks. The good news is we're coming out of lockdown. How are you keeping yourself?
Yeah, well, we always say you control the controllables, and this definitely it's something we can't control, so we are trying to we try to keep our heads and trying to make the most out of the time that is a very I wouldn't say even weird, but it's weird, but it's more like uncertainty and some things that can bring a bit of disturbs in your mental side of preparing for as a coach and as a player, but we try to keep all that away from ourselves and try to focus on what we can control, that is our preparation, trying to get better ourselves, individually and as a group. So it's been a challenging 2 months and a bit more, but I think that we can now see light at the end of the tunnel, and I think we'll come out of that in a good shape in terms of well prepared and hopefully ready to kick off the upcoming season.
Absolutely. And Filipe, within the Leinster rugby squad throughout this time, would the players have been on individual training programs and working away themselves on their own?
Yeah, mostly we've been working like fitness wise and keeping themselves fit, and in fairness, like with all the GPS and everything, they can you can track them quite well in that terms. And I think for the looks, they look really they are in shape, so now it's about just when we come back, trying to get back to our rugby skills and the brain and the body and the cells, they have memory, so I trust they'll get it quickly enough, so and we've been trying to do bits and pieces in terms of incrementing and keeping our mind ticking rugby wise for the players, especially in terms of what we want to achieve, analyzing other teams and so on, and some previous games, not only Leinster games but international games or other games. So it's been challenging, but I think it's the way, like we try to make the most out of it.
If I could take you back, Filipe, to your time in Argentina first, and you went to school in the Cardinal Newman School, started playing rugby there. What influence did the school have on your development as a rugby player?
Oh, huge. I think I come from a rugby family, so definitely I think if I wouldn't play for my school and then club, that it's an old school, like I probably would have played in a club rugby because of my dad, but school was massive. It's Christian Brothers, an Irish school. So and what they've done is they picked rugby as the sport for developing or making or as one part of development of the whole person, So I started playing rugby there at school, and it was massive, the influence, and then it's kind of that school then we becomes a club, so I kept on playing in Club Newman, in Newman Club. So yeah, that's my club, and it's where I've got my friends, where I, when I go back to Argentina, where I go every weekend, because that's my, I would say it's my second home, you know.
Yeah, excellent. And I suppose from school then you were basically picked to play with the junior selections in Buenos Aires and represented Argentina at national level. Was the ambition from saying playing within Argentina, was the ambition to come over professionally and play in the northern hemisphere? Was that always there with you?
No, not really, because if we go back to my times when I was a teenager, rugby wasn't professional yet. So my ambition was to play for my first division club, in the first division, and in the first team of my club, you know, and that was my main ambition. It then all started happening quite quickly, that I played under, it was under 19s, and then under 21s, and then sevens, and then in the senior team for Argentina. Um, by that time, I was studying medicine back home, and then some offers after '99 World Cup started coming my side. So I started seeing, or I rejected the first few because I was quite comfortable in the way I was, and I knew I wanted to be a doctor and so on. So, but then I remember I started being first choice for Argentina, the senior team. So, and Pichot from Bristol offered, like, gave me a call and say if I wanted to go there. So I decided to go and have a go and try it. And yeah, I liked it, and well, then it's all history, you know.
Mm. So, Felipe, when you arrived at Bristol, what was your initial thoughts on the style and the setup of the Northern Hemisphere rugby?
Well, we've always we had in Argentina, we had a much more understanding, or from the northern hemisphere than the southern hemisphere, because we were more attached, like, you know, the Six Nations always been a huge tournament for us to watch, and most of the news, like Argentina, we now we play frequently with the southern hemisphere teams, but this wasn't the case 7 8 years ago. We used to play more against the northern hemisphere teams than the southern hemisphere teams. So I remember being young and having France. They came a lot to play against Argentina in Buenos Aires, and England, and those were the teams I remember more than the All Blacks or South Africa or Australia, because they come every now and then, but the northern hemisphere teams would come more frequently. So I knew that it was a tough, like, very physical game, and that's where I think I made my learning curve was in Bristol. Was I've spent 3 years, and all that physicality, that ruthlessness of the game, I think I got it down there, you know.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. And obviously, Bristol unfortunately got relegated during the 02-03 season. How did the move to Leinster come about?
Yeah, in fairness, I was leaving Bristol anyway,
Yeah.
and that experience, that last year in Bristol, gave me a lot of learning, because by January we were top four, top five team in the Premiership, and we were playing Europe that year, and we played Leinster, and the owner said he was not going to put any more money because of an issue, and it was unbelievable how people started, like, disinteresting about the team, and I got mad, because, like, how can you, it's not only about it doesn't matter if someone will come behind, but so it was a lot of learning how people react to a bad uh, news, or a bad situation, you know. And as you said, we ended up being relegated, where 3-4 months before, or 5 months before the end of that season, it could have been a great season, you know. So that was weird. But then Leinster, it came back because the truth is that it's a funny story. I was in '02, November '02, we played Argentina, Ireland, and I came back to the reception, and it was in our hotel, and I was late, not late, but one of the last coming in. So the tables were already full, the players' table. So I turned around and asked for a chair in the table beside, and they say, yeah, come sit down. I said, no, I'll come for dessert. It ended up that it was Leinster's table, and by talking there, and they came and said, well, I had dessert with them, and I remember they were talking, and one guy said, if you want to come and play for Leinster, here's the president. It was John Hussey, and I said, well, look, if you allow me to study and finish my medical degree, I'll come and play for you. And I wrote down my number in a napkin and gave it to John Hussey. And 2 months later, they phoned me because we were playing them down in Bristol. So Professor Arthur Turner, who was the doctor, came and see me the night before when we played Leinster. He came to my house. I showed him what I've done, and he said, well, maybe we can have a chance of you having your medical degree finished here, you know, in Ireland. So basically, I first came an interview with the Royal College of Surgeons, and then once that was sorted out, I then went and sorted out my Leinster contract, you know. So yeah, funny, but
brilliant, yeah. And the thought of playing with the likes of Brian O'Driscoll and Dennis Hickey and Gordon Darcy, did that make kind of the decision easier to move?
Yeah, totally. I think when you see, the thing was that Stade Francais wants me to go and play for them, and they wanted me and Pichot, and but especially because Diego Dominguez was finishing, they wanted a 10 and so on. And I, you know, obviously the most well-known tournaments were the Premiership and the top 14. But when I was, you know, I played Leinster, we played them against Bristol, and we knew how good they were, and I knew all the players, like how good they were, like you said, Darcy and Drico, but also Shaggy and Dennis and Gervin Dempsey, and it was the Irish backline, you know. And, so yeah, I knew it was a great opportunity, a great team, and also there were very good forwards, you know. Victor was there, Reggie and Munch. There were loads of Irish internationals, Mallow Kelly, Eric Miller, Gleeson. I can spend all day naming them, you know. But I think it's it was, in terms of players, it was just the only question mark was the competition. It wasn't the players, it wasn't the but I trusted, you know. As I said, rugby was becoming quite professional at that stage, and you could see that at that time the Celtic League was getting bigger, and to be honest, like, my main motivation was the medical study. So now seeing it backwards, I think it was one of my best decisions in life. So
yeah, brilliant. And you went on and you won the Celtic League in 07 to 08 season. Obviously, that was a great achievement for yourself and the team. But was there a real belief you could go on the following year and win the Heineken Cup? After seeing Munster do it in 06, was that kind of an extra bit of motivation for you to go on?
I think it was part of Munster. They were a much more settled, mature team, you know, at those days, and we Leinster, we had a lot of potential, but we weren't achieving that potential, And to be honest, we didn't have probably what Munster had at those days, that strong culture, and it takes time to build a culture. But I remember that those days it started building up with, first of all, with some results, and like the '06 Heineken Cup campaign when we beat Toulouse and then we lost
Yeah.
against Munster in the semi-final. That was a big um, learning for all of us, as a group, and to understand that to win that Champions Cup, we weren't ready yet, and we needed to improve. It wasn't just enough to have a great game against Toulouse in Toulouse. You needed to perform week in, week out, and in big stages. So yeah, that was a learning curve. And I think, yeah, you said we went, we were short the following 2 years, but then '09 we won it, and
Yeah.
and with some games that they weren't really Leinster, like if you remember the Bloodgate and against Harlequins,
Yeah.
we scrapped that game, and we beat Harlequin away, but it was such a difficult game, and that's also a part of the belief when you win in such an un-Leinster way, or for those days, where we realized we could win in different ways, So yeah, it was good.
So, obviously, in the semi-final versus Munster, you sustained a very serious knee injury after 25 minutes. And I remember watching the game. I think for the first 25 minutes, you were nearly unplayable. But how difficult was it for you to take that you knew when you got injured not to be a part of the final?
No, it wasn't about me. It was about Leinster. I've been 6 years in Leinster, and all what I wanted was Leinster to get to win that Heineken Cup. When you're in a team, and when you decide to play a team sport, I think that the biggest thing to understand is that the team is bigger than yourself. And when you say, or people say, "Oh, I'll play my part, whatever it takes," or, well, you then, when it comes your turn, you need to do it. It's not just about saying it, and for me, it was a great opportunity to understand that a team team environment. I remember I got injured, and people would say, "Oh, you've got," and it was my first big injury in my whole career, like a knee surgery, and I knew I was going to be out for 6 months. I've already had it can jeopardize I've decided I was moving from Leinster. So, but still, that day it was such a big happiness. Like, I didn't even care about my knee, about what happened. It was like, and then the following day, I remember going to checks and say, okay, here I am. I'm not going to be inside the pitch. How can I help outside? And then you try to find where you can be, or how can you contribute to the team, and that's part of being part of a team. um,
Yeah.
it's the way it is, and if things happens the way it happened, it's because of a reason, and you couldn't understand it maybe at the moment, but it's the way it is. No, I have no
Brilliant.
regrets at all. I really enjoyed, like, every moment of that campaign,
Yeah, and just obviously leading up to the final, did you have a specific role that in and around the team, or did you just take a step back? Or were you still very much involved in kind of the build up to the game?
No, yeah, I was involved. I remember there was a video analyst, but not as the video analysis, sorry, wasn't as intense as it is nowadays. And I remember with Emmett Farrell, with Bumper, like staying, and I'm trying to analyze Leicester and see the things. And I watched a lot of games from Leicester those days, and just probably I thought I was making something, and probably Checo wasn't even listening to me, like he was just, yeah, just keep him happy there or whatever. but but you feel part of it, and then I remember I traveled with the team, not the day the day of the game as most of the, but I went with the playing squad, and it's kind of, they made, like Czech made me part of it, and yeah, I think I still remember every moment, and it was great to be there.
And before we touch on your coaching career within Leinster, Felipe, if I could just for a moment speak about the 2007 Rugby World Cup. It was a hugely successful um, World Cup for Argentina in terms of coming third. Um, Preparations going in, were you confident of a successful tournament?
Um, to be honest, we knew it was going to be. It was a huge challenge because we were drawn in Ireland and French and the French pool, So, and we knew it was like, again, for the third time in a row, the inaugurational game. And in rugby, inaugurational game is a party for the home side. It's not for, you're not allowed to win that game, and actually no one won it ever. It was the first time ever that the away team won the inaugurational game. So we, all our focus in all our preparation was on that 7th of September. That was the focus, and we couldn't even see past that day because we knew that everything would that game would kind of say where we are going to go, if we were going to go far away or if we were going to be at home early. So we knew that that game was the massive game for us. That was the game that will decide our fate, and that's why we focused so much on that game. And in fairness, we had a good game plan. We had a good game, and we came on top. Probably we weren't the best team. Or France were better, but on those 80 minutes we played better, and we beat them well. So yeah, that was our main preparation. That game.
And we'd say you topped the group, you beat Scotland in the quarterfinals, and you go again. Obviously, you were unlucky against South Africa in the semi-final, but you played France in the third place playoff again. Back home, how did your country respond to the success of that 2007 tournament?
I think it was a massive, also because of the situation. I remember they even changed the time of a Boca and River. It's the biggest
Yeah.
game, football game in you don't, like, the country stopped for those games, and they've changed the hour because it was the same time we were playing the quarterfinals against Scotland, and they've changed it, and they brought it backwards so that people could watch the game and then go, whoever goes and watch the other game as well. So that was massive, and I think that kind, when they told us that was happening, like, that's when we realized, whoa, this is huge. It's getting big, because people, like, really, they started following rugby, and some people following rugby and following the Pumas for the first time ever. And people didn't. Rugby is a complicated sport to understand if you come from a football mentality. Imagine that in rugby you kick it out and people clap. In football, you throw the ball out and they will boo you all day long. In rugby, you have to pass it backwards. In football, people don't want the ball to be passed backwards. They want teams going forward, not backwards. So it's kind of the idiosyncrasy is strange in terms of, for a very football orientated mentality country. But it really, that World Cup helped a lot to develop and to grow rugby in Argentina.
Would it have been the catalyst as well for Argentina and the Pumas to join the Rugby Championship in 2012?
Yeah. I think Argentina, as I said, we were missing a lot of competition. Imagine that. I'll give you, to put it in perspective, like, we played the All Blacks in 2011, the quarterfinal, and the previous time we played them was in '06. So 5 years before. We didn't even play them between World Cups. So how can you expect Argentina to beat a team that is on top of it? It was kind of, we were urging for more competition, playing the top tier teams every year, you know, and not just playing. What happened with us was that sometimes they send us a second tier or a second string team of Northern Hemisphere in June when they come to Argentina, and then it was kind of, we weren't playing against the best all the time, you know, and that's what you want as a player, and I think that World Cup definitely helped, and well, that's when it all started, you know.
Excellent.
Brilliant. So Filipe, just moving back to more recent times, you're back with Leinster as a backs coach now. Having played rugby there and known the culture, did it make the decision easier to come back to Dublin?
Yeah, totally. I was coaching in Argentina, and I decided that for me to get better, I needed to go abroad, because in Argentina, professional rugby started only 3-4 years ago. So I decided I had to go abroad, and when some opportunities came, Leinster's backs coach was there, and definitely I said, well, this will be my priority. I think that when you're if you're a coach, it's easier to coach when you understand the culture, when you understand the philosophy of that club and the history that club brings, you know. It doesn't mean you can't go to another club or another place where the philosophy of the culture is different, but you need to adapt to those culture things, or historic culturally philosophy of rugby, you know. And the other thing is that the Leinster philosophy and culture is what I believe in. So it's much easier for me to express or to coach or to try to transmit something that I believe in and that I have it very ingrained in myself, than to adapt to something different, you know. But that's a great challenge. If you see Eddie Jones, I always say, like, I don't know him personally, but I always say that for me it's amazing how he can adapt. You know, he got to a final in '03 with Australia, playing the Australian way. Was world champion in '07 with South Africa, and he didn't try to change South Africa and make them play like Australia. They were the most South African team ever, and then he beat Japan he beat South Africa with Japan playing the Japanese way in 2015, and you can see now England. They are the most English team that I've seen in the last 20 years. You know, they good set piece, kicking game, pressure, and that's what they do, and that's how England traditionally plays. So he has the ability to adapt to culturally and historically to what teams were made of, you know, and that's a very good ability, you know.
Brilliant. Obviously, you bundles of talent in the team at Leinster. Do you have a specific way that you like them to play, or would you be more of a heads-up style of rugby? What would be your kind of philosophy on that with the backs?
No, it's funny enough, because people speak about a lot of unstructure and structure and unstructure, and for me it's like we are quite good in that phase rugby. I won't say unstructured because we're very structured, because everyone knows where to go, and we create opportunities by everyone knowing where to go and why to go to that place. And when you have that frame for them to work on, and they know where to move, and if they move early, you will find opportunities and get the space and move towards the space is there. But you will always see that we don't play like heads up only. Well, we play heads up rugby, but with a structure, with a frame where everyone knows which what's their role, and that's makes it easier, you know. But it's hard to, like, it's not like do whatever you want. It's why are you doing this? Why do you want there if the space is the other side? So they start to understand where they have to go so as to work as a team, because it's not just one guy that can go wherever. The 15 guys have to be in the same syntony, you know, so they need to work as a team in the same frame, because if someone is opening and being really wide on one side, it doesn't mean that he's just walking or spending his time there. He's doing a job. He's opening the defense. If they don't go there, if they don't defend him, we are going there. He's already there in space. So why we? So it all has a purpose, and that's why we try to coach and teach, you know, or just get fluent on that.
Brilliant. Just like Leinster now have this unbelievable winning mentality. How as coaches do you sustain that? Or is it very much kind of a players led with that kind of winning mentality?
Yeah, that's the, for me, that's the ultimate, the ideal, you know, when you can pass a bit of or most of the ownership to the players, because at the end of the day they are playing, but you need to have the right players for them to take ownership, and that's something that I think when we say about culture, it's been created and it takes a long time to create that culture, you know. And if you see, it's part of their, like with Leo starting, like as a player, he was part of that starting winning culture, and then he brought it as the head coach. He's a guy that is always looking for that culture to continue, you know. There you have the likes of Johnny, Rob, Ferg, guys that they went through the dark days when they were starting. It doesn't mean that, but now they are in the, you know, in that high of Leinster being such a successful team, but they know how hard it takes to get there. And the great challenge is to instill and for them to pass that knowledge and that behaviors and that culture to the young guys, that they arrive into a successful team. Because sometimes you can take for granted success, and it doesn't come without hard work, without understanding that, and that, as you say, and that winning mentality and that desire to become better every day. And that's the challenge to now, when you're in successful, how you keep and bring that, install that behaviors, that culture, that knowledge to the young guys coming through. And that's the challenge we'll face in the next years, you know.
Brilliant. So just like you've worked with many different coaches over the years, and as a player and as a coach, like, do you take different ideas from their philosophy, or do you kind of just mold your own?
Well, I take in different ideas from a lot of different philosophies. You will mold your own, you know. I think you need to learn. Yeah, and as I always said, when they say it's not that I've learned from every coach, and from some coaches I've learned things that I wouldn't do, but I've learned, and that's the key. I think that you always have to keep on learning things, and every coach has something to give you. Some coaches will add more to your knowledge or to your learning skills and so on, but every coach has something to add and to give you. So for me, I'm quite a positive guy in that sense, always trying to see what can I get from someone, you know, and I try to see the half of the glass full and not the empty part, you know. So yeah, I've learned a lot, and definitely I'm molding. I've got, as I said, I've got my philosophy or what I think I would be, but you need to have the personal to play the style of rugby or the philosophy I want. So I'm more adaptable now in terms of, I would like to think that I can be more adaptable depending where I am or where the personnel I have, the style I could play rugby. But I definitely, I know what I want, you know.
Yeah, and just who for you will be the most influential coach you've played or worked under?
It's very hard because some guys influence me. Like, for example, Lofreda maybe was the Argentinian coach in '07 and so on. Maybe he didn't influence too much in my rugby knowledge or philosophy, but he influenced a lot in my mental side and the leadership side of myself, you know. Cheka as a coach, he influenced me more on the rugby side and the passionate side, but there are things I wouldn't do like him, you know. Now as a coach, Leo and Stuart, definitely they've been installing a lot of learning things and good habits and things that I would take on board as a coach. So I take a lot from everyone. I can't say one, you know.
I'm going to stop the lads there because we have to take a quick break. But don't go anywhere. Coming up, Jimmy, Gary and Filipe talk about Filipe's approach to coaching and his life outside of sport. Find out how Filipe gets on in our infamous rapid fire question round. Coming up after the break.
Cipriani, Flutie, the short throw by Contepomi! And that is number 4 for
Filipe, if I can just delve into your coaching there for just a moment, the routine of kicking penalties and conversions, what detail of preparation would you get in to get your kicking game spot on?
I think that's a very personal routine, you know. You can't, I always say you need to perfect or whatever style the player has and what he gets comfortable. There's no one rule for everyone. That's my view, you know, because to start with, if say, for example, if I want everyone to kick like Johnny Wilkinson, well, not everyone has the same biomechanics. So not everyone will kick straight up and if I want everyone to kick like Johnny Sexton, the same. I can't. Definitely, I can have some cues and things that, you know, how to follow through, you can give the player a few tips on how to visualize, um, how to perform his routine. But then it comes to every single player, how he likes the steps he wants to take, how many steps, how many time he wants to spend. I remember when I was kicking, like I tried to get down to my basal breathing and you know levels, and then I start my routine and I try to make it as short as possible because it takes so much concentration that the longer I keep it, the more chances I could get out of my zone, you know. So that was me. And some guys, you can see that they take the 1.5 minutes full on for kicking, you know, and they like to spend time and take a lot of time in watching the post and where it's going to go, and that's the way they visualize. So you can't tell them no, just shorten up your time, because that's what gets them what they need, you know. So it's about trying to find a very individual routine for each one. Definitely there are some tips, but
We'd say in terms of the mental side of the game, you got the physical fitness side, being coachable. You have the mental and physical skills. Would you see them as the 3 most important components?
yeah, I'll put it this way: the skills for me are the easiest part of all. I think that with time and work, most players can get basic skills right, or to a level to play, you know. Like fitness wise, you have to have something of genetics and also but with work you'll do it. But the mental side is crucial, and that's where sometimes when we scout or we fall in love with talent, you know, and for me it's more than it's attitude where we need to fall in love rather than talent. Talent can brings you to a level, but it's attitude what will make you excel and reach your potential. So that mental thing you're talking, mental skills, and that you can see them with attitude, how a guy wants to get better, and how he works hard, and this and that. Those things are for me crucial when you're scouting, and especially in young lads, because that's what will make them uh, get better and better. And as a player, you can't stop getting better and better. You're never a finished article, not even when you get to the end of your career. You're never a finished article. You always have space for learning. Sometimes a bit more, sometimes just 1%, 2%, but you can. And if they have that mentality of always trying to get better, always improving, they'll get better and they'll get to their potential. But if you find something that he's really an athlete, but he doesn't work hard, okay, he might make the difference at 18, 20 years old, but he won't make it when he's getting to the highest level if he doesn't work it hard and doesn't have that mental side to get over those moments, you know. So yeah, I would put it that way, you know. Skills, rugby skills are the easiest to coach. If someone wants to get them and works hard, he'll probably improve, and quite easily and quick. Fitness, the same. The only thing with fitness is you need to have a genetic component that allows you, you know, if you're 1 meter 70 and you want to play second row, you can have every skills, but it will be hard for you, you know. There's genetics part of that. And the other thing that is also part of genetic experience and life and learning is, and your mentality and mindset is the psychological. And that's for me the most important one.
Excellent, excellent. And finally, just in terms of the coaching, when you're on field coaching with the Leinster players, is there a plan and a template to follow that's put together from yourself and Stuart and Leo of what you coach? When you talk earlier there about where to go and why players go there, are you actually running through on-field situational play there?
Well, we don't go. I'm a coach that I think that I will never go onto the pitch without a purpose and real purpose and understanding what I want to do and why we want to do it. So there's definitely a plan and a purpose of what and why we are doing this type of training and this other side. Sometimes you can't explain it detailed all the time, and we will do this because that and that. And the thing, it's when we go on the pitch, we just want intensity. So we don't stop to train. If we don't get the purpose, if it's not getting on and things are not getting the way we want to, we keep going. And then we'll assess it with the video or with small chats or whatever, different ways. But we just go, definitely we have a purpose. We have a purpose and we have a why we are doing this sort of training and not another one. It's because we want to, for example, if we want to focus more on the defense, we'll have a certain, even with the same exercises or similar exercises, but focusing on defense. So we'll create opportunities for the defense to work on, rather than if we want to focus on the attack, we might create a extra numbers in attack so that they can have a bit more of space and understand what and how we want to do it. So yeah, definitely there's a purpose and a why in every session we do. Sometimes we don't get it right, and well, many times we don't get it right, and that's why we have the reviews of the training sessions and that's why that's the learning part that we take on board, you know.
Excellent, excellent. And I suppose, Felipe, we've all seen you as a player, and we've seen you now as a coach with Leinster. But when you're out of the bubble of Leinster rugby, what do you do to relax?
Well, I like to spend. Well, now I've got a newborn, so a 3-month-old boy. So I've got a lot of time to spend with him now. But yeah, I'll no, I like just simple things, you know, like even go to the park or for walk or spend with time with my wife, even and friends. If I were at home more of and where I have more of a social life with my family and so on, and I've got a big family, lots of brothers and sisters, and so I'll probably go on the weekend. I'll go and have a barbecue and very very family orientated. I like to go to my club, as I said, in the social club Newman, watch the first division team. I play golf. I do sports, play soccer. I'm very very normal in terms of trying to spend, and I also like a lot to read. So I try to spend some time reading and when I can, you know, that relaxes me.
No, outstanding. That's been fantastic, Felipe. And I suppose just to finish up our interview, we do what's called a quick fire round. Basically, 10 questions. I'll put you on the timer, and we'll see how you get on if you're happy enough to do that. So,
yeah.
3, 2, 1. Favorite rugby player?
And Brian O'Driscoll, I say.
Okay. Favorite stadium?
To play rugby?
Yeah.
Internationally, I'd say Millennium Stadium.
Favorite movie?
Godfather.
Favorite music?
Music, well, I'd say it's in Spanish, but if not, the Rolling Stones.
Last book you've read?
Last book? I've Rebel Ideas from Matthew Say.
One sporting event you'd like to go to?
Probably the final of Football World Cup.
Wow. Favorite sport other than rugby?
Soccer, football. Yeah.
Favorite game you've played in yourself?
Probably I'll put against Wales in '98 when I first played with my twin brother, my first cup, Argentinian Cup.
Well, 2 to go. 10 or 12?
11. 12 with Johnny Sexton number 10 style. 10 if the number 10 is it's just a kicking out half or stays behind, you know. I like 12 if the number 10 is a running and attacking number 10, you know.
Final one, your favorite podcast?
Favorite podcast? It's Finding Mastery.
That's Mastery. It. Okay, yeah. Perfect. Well, Felipe, thanks so much for joining us on the extended panel today. You're the greatest rugby player Argentina has ever had. You captain your own national team. You play professional rugby in 3 different countries, and we wish you the very best luck in your coaching career going forward. It's been a pleasure for us to have you on the extended panel today. And once again, thank you so much.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, boys.
Cheers, Felipe.
Cheers.
Well, folks, that just about concludes all the time we have for today's show. A huge thanks once again to Filipe Contepomi for joining us on today's episode. I'm sure all of you rugby fans and indeed general sports fans enjoyed listening to Filipe recapping on his astonishing career, and we'd like to wish him all the best with his campaign with Leinster once things get up and running again. As always, if you're listening on Spotify, please make sure to follow the podcast so you don't miss out on our new episode each week. We have many more guests lined up for the coming weeks that we're very excited about. In the meantime, if you'd like to get in contact with the page or keep up to date with upcoming guests, follow us on Instagram or Twitter at Extended Panel. We'd love to hear from you. That's all from us here at the Extended Panel. Thanks again for staying with us, and we look forward to seeing you next week with a brand new episode. Slán Niamh.